Hoorah, hoorah, hoorah. This is a jarhead, a leatherneck, a shock trooper, devil dog. I'm in South Carolina. Today's date is January the 21st, 2013. And I just want to show a 10-minute of the men in the dress blues at the White House prior to the swearing in. The devil dog, the United States Marine Corps, looking sharp.
And I think this is going to be a real conversation that he's got to win with the American people, that we can do something about our finances and still accomplish all those investments to take us to the next level of energy independence, of education, competing on the world platform in education, and doing the infrastructure that we're talking about when it comes to rail, when it comes to bridges, when it comes to the basics that help businesses across America. Now, how are you going to do that? And how are you going to convince the Republicans that you have to make these investments if you're going to move the country forward? We have two different philosophies on how to create jobs in this country. Republicans think the government doesn't have a role. President Obama, the Democrats, and the progressive community believe that you have to be a partner. There has to be that public partner-private-ship agreement if we're going to move forward. Senator John Kerry is going to play, obviously, a big role in this next administration.
Nominee for Secretary of State, and you see the Marines here making way for the President himself. This is actually the President leaving the White House. You saw just a moment ago his daughter Malia and her grandmother leaving ahead of the President himself. There's going to be moments like this, these moments of transition throughout the day as they move between the different inaugural events, when everything stops and the focus of everybody's attention turns to the man himself.
I just love looking at those Marines. I do. They're so disciplined. You go to the White House, you try to make eye contact with them. They're just so disciplined. They just are there doing a job of pageantry and protection. And it's neat to be around that environment at the White House when you go in and you see such just unwavering discipline.
That guy on the right is really not moving.
No, he does not. They don't move. They don't move.
It really is kind of amazing in a time when we think of how much video, just the sheer amount of video we see in the world now because of new media and social media, that we can still be riveted by these moments of the pomp and circumstance that is our government in transition and our government in performance. And so, for me, part of what's interesting here is just that we are still visually attuned to what it means to be Americans, that we can still gather around the television in this way and spend time thinking about that. On the one hand, this is just the pomp and circumstance of it, but it in fact matters.
Yeah.
It's also a reminder, as you see senators filing in, not necessarily in partisan order, not necessarily in state order, but all together. You see these Marines at the door of the White House. It's a reminder that this is not the celebration of who won the election. This is not the celebration of one side doing better than the other side in terms of competing for Americans' affections. This is a celebration of American governance.
Senator Al Franken from Minnesota, the junior senator, Amy Klobuchar, the other senator who was just seated a moment ago. Al Franken has taken a very low-key approach. Doesn't do national interviews, just does interviews in the state of Minnesota. There you see Elizabeth Warren, who is going to play a huge role in this administration to keep Wall Street, and Tammy Baldwin, of course, from Wisconsin. Those are two big allies for the White House right there, and they're going to play a big role when it comes to advocacy for the people and the middle class in this administration. And President Obama needed those two senators to get elected.
The side of Dr. Jill Biden there on the left side of your screen, a sign that we are about to hear from, or at least see Vice President Joe Biden. The two of them never fall apart.
I ran into the Vice President last night. If there's one guy that is enjoying this whole thing, it's Joe Biden. He pulled up outside the St. Regis Hotel last night, and he wanted to see the crowd so bad. Of course, security is extremely tight. And he got out, as soon as he popped out, he turned around, looked at the crowd. Everybody was yelling, Joe, 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 and he just loves it.
Rachel, what do you think he's running for?
Well, it's interesting. Let me tell you this. There's a lot of people from New Hampshire all the way down to vice chairs of counties who've got pretty interesting seats at this inauguration.
I know.
Joe's working
He did an Iowa
2016
bet on
already.
Saturday night already, and I'll tell you, I think he's running. He's probably hoping Hillary will decide not to run.
Exactly.
Rachel asked earlier, how do you transform the personality, power of a presidential personality into something that is powerful? And one of the most important, of course, is if we judge the quality of a first term by being elected to a second, we judge the quality of the second by being able to get your vice president elected.
I've got to talk. I'm not an expert on it, but I love the First Lady's dress. Is that really great or what?
A lot of conversation about her hairstyle, too.
Yeah,
just love
Dolly
the-
Madison was the first Lady to witness her husband being inaugurated to the U.S. presidency, and she was.
I was going to say, Dolly Madison, also known for being a swank.
Exactly.
And that's something we haven't talked a lot about, is what is Michelle Obama's role going to be in this?
They have decisions to make about that.
Yeah.
She's so popular.
Yeah, and she is a real asset and so likable.
Well, the fact that she announced OFA, the 501c4, suggests to me that she may be taking a more direct policy role. No, she's not going to be doing policy in the way that Mrs. Clinton did, obviously, but I suspect that OFA may begin to give her a way to think about how to connect that volunteerism traditional model of a first lady job with a more active policy role.
She'll be a motivator of the base.
Well,
no
she's
doubt.
already done so much with joining forces and all the military families prioritization that she's done. Also with Dr. Joe Biden. It's already been so important. There's the vice president.
Senator Lamar Alexander, Tennessee.
On the inaugural committee.
Are we noticing the JFK aspect to the Biden attire today? No overcoat.
Yeah, that's right.
He's not a subtle man.
That's what we like the best about Joe.
Does Joe Biden have an enemy in Washington? I mean, Joe Biden, you talk about his popularity, his electability, you think about him potentially running. That's what, but of all the years that he has spent in Washington, is there an anti-Joe Biden core in Washington? I don't know anybody in politics who is.
Well, there is a pattern. When he was speaking at the lunches of the weekly Democratic Senate meeting, they always asked if he would speak last so they could leave. He did go on.
Former Senator Tom Daschle, Democratic leader, who really played a huge role in bringing Barack Obama to the national stage via the Kerry campaign. Daschle tells a fabulous story about the first time he met Barack Obama. He was a Senate Democratic leader, went to Chicago, and there's the president.
There's the president himself with Chuck Schumer, who's the chair of the inaugural committee.
Also no overcoat.
Well, I have to tell you, Chuck Schumer, if he's not the next Senate leader, I don't know who is. And I know he's up against Durbin, his roommate, actually, for that job. But his power with regard to the Hagel nomination was awesome. He was the green light for that nomination.
And they give a big endorsement of him on Meet the Press on Sunday after a 90-minute interview that he had with Chuck Hagel. And Chuck Schumer has a very special manner of how to cut to the chase and ask the direct question. It's like you and I were talking earlier, Chris, about middle of the road. You know, you get somebody who's close friends with both, and you make them decide, okay, where are you?
So
He's kind of that way.
Chuck Schumer, as the chair of the inaugural committee, has a very high-profile role in all of today's ceremonies, the same way that Dianne Feinstein did in 2009. But Chuck Schumer,
Hold on one second.
we talk about him in terms of his public profile. He is essentially the policy director for the Democrats in the House, as they have held the majority for the entirety of President Obama's first term. This week is going to be a very big week in Washington, not just because of the inauguration, but because of the Senate making a very important decision about whether or not they are going to change their rules to further empower the Democrats in the majority there, which would have a massive impact on the president's
Hoorah, hoorah to my Marines.
Chuck Schumer, of course, right in the middle of that very technical and very political decision, even as he manages the pomp and circumstance today.